Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News here at the South Florida Conservative News Center, Saturday, April 11th, 12:35. I hope you're having an enjoyable lunch. And we are going to give a report card to the Trump administration and, of course, the Ayatollah Khamenei, or what's left of him, as to how this conflict is going now that we are moving into the peace process in Pakistan, which means absolutely nothing, but we'll talk about that as well. And, there is something off about the way the war is being reported, as you know, and you've probably felt it. One day you hear the United States is dominating militarily. The next day it sounds like Iran still has leverage, still has influence, still has a say in how this thing ends. So, which is it really? Is the United States winning, or is Iran holding its own ground? And the answer is both, right? Which is what keeps Chuck Schumer up all night. Because what you're watching right now is not one war, it is two wars. And it is due to perception issues across cultures and across militaries. So let's get into this with the two war system. The United States is fighting a military war. Iran is fighting a survival war. The United States is trying to, and I'm just going to list these, it's easier. And if you like, you can go to www.southfloridaconservative.com, see the whole thing written out with all the other little parts and parcels to it. And, that's the story with that. But the United States is trying to destroy the capabilities of the country, secure the shipping lanes, reduce a nuclear risk, and stabilize the system. Where Iran, and by Iran we mean the Ayatollah and the IRGC, is trying to survive. And they're trying to stay relevant, and they need to remain feared by the other states in the area. And that way they can force negotiations the way they want them. So when Americans out there that are not protesting, and they say, did we beat them? Iran is asking something very different, which is, do we as Iran still matter? And that difference explains everything that is going on at this moment, at these peace agreements, which will not actually occur. If you want to understand who is actually shaping this conflict, you have to ignore the speeches, you have to get on and you have to watch the Strait of Hormuz and ask yourself, are the ships moving freely? Or are they moving under Iranian coordination as far as you know? I've been one, and a number of other people will all talk about this related to how the news is saying it that Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. I am telling you they do not. They do not. That other drawing that you saw that they sent out, that's the channel. They have no way of mining the place. There are no real mines per se. They can throw some missiles at you from the beach. Yes, the big problem had been, and I'll keep saying it, was Lloyd's of London pulling the insurances, Trump not pushing our insurances harder. That's $40 billion worth of insurance. And you say, why aren't the ships biting on that? Well, let's find out who's all really on your side and who's not on your side, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, are the ships moving freely? Or are they moving under Iranian coordination? And that means they're contacting them. As you know, the Iranians are taxing certain people, but they don't want to talk about that, the people that are being taxed. Are insurance markets stabilizing? Very simply, go online. You can use Grok or anybody because this is a normal question. Ask who the largest shipping insurers are, other than Lloyd's, and then look at themselves on the stock market. Okay. Or if they give you those little vignettes on what's happening in the stocks today. Okay. So, or are they still pricing themselves compared to the idea that there's going to be this frickin' missileopolis problem in the straits? Because this is where you're going to see the truth. Control of the strait is not about ships. It's about who defines the rules of movement. If the world behaves as if Iran must be consulted, then Iran still has leverage, even if its military has taken damage or is a smoking ruin. Okay. This is the part almost nobody in the Trump administration, let me tell you what the Trump administration does very badly across the board. They do not explain barely anything to anybody as it goes along. Now, I understand they have leaks, and I understand that the Democrats don't give a fuck, but there are citizens that voted this administration in. And I will say, outside of Scott Bessent, Marco Rubio does an awful lot of work. He doesn't do a lot of explaining what's going on. Bessent explains the financial hoops that are being run through normally. And then after that, it's sort of all downhill. So, back to what nobody talks about. Modern global trade runs on risk and insurance. Very not military power down here. If insurers are nervous, premiums stay high, the ships don't move. Then Iran is still shaping behavior, which is why the administration, Trump said, I got 40 billion to cover you with. And it's done through a consortium of American companies. And that was a story for another time. People saw what also could occur there if they were anti-American. And that's one of the reasons that they're doing what they're doing. Then, like I said, Iran is still shaping the behavior. And here's your key insight. Iran, whoever, doesn't need to win the battlefield. It just needs to make the system feel unstable because of the amounts of money that flow through that strait. Because fear is a form of control. The Iranians have been bullies for years. They've been scaring everybody. In fact, if they didn't invent the word terrorism, it would have been invented for them. Okay? A lot of people feel like Iran is more likely to escalate than countries like the United States or Russia. And this is why we're talking about the dangers, right? And that feeling matters, even if it's not entirely accurate, because Iran's leadership is so opaque. Its rhetoric is different. Its tactics are asymmetrical. They create unpredictability to Westerners. And unpredictability creates something more powerful, which is perceived risk. In a modern conflict, perceived willingness to escalate can shape the markets, alliances, and decisions. Honestly, if we were to have played this game at the Middle Eastern level, Donald Trump should have blown up one of those electrical plants to show you how serious he is. That would have done it, and that would have been the way they would have done it. And you say, well, we're above them. You're not above anybody when you're trying to win a war. They want to fight in the alley, you fight them in the alley. How do you fight cavemen if you're from space or the future? What was that movie, Body of Lies? These cavemen think we're from the future. Well, how do you fight future people? Right? You hear a lot about nuclear weapons, and the real issue isn't will Iran use one tomorrow? The real issue is how close are they? How fast could they move? Can they hide or disperse the materials? Because the real danger is not the immediate use. It is kind of, but it's not the immediate use because even though these guys talk a good game, they are billionaires. They have houses in England, they have houses in France, they have mistresses that dress like Westerners. They're into all kinds of crazy shit. There's a couple homosexuals. We can't talk about that because we get thrown off YouTube. But the real danger is not the immediate use. It is the leverage. It is the ambiguity. It is the ability to make the world hesitate because they're the crazy ones. Like they always say with Israel, if you were to cross into Israel, Israel will drop the bomb on you. If Iran got the bomb, Israel will drop a bomb on them. But we know the Israelis will really do it. Okay. So now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention, and it is the alliance itself that is operating over there with the United States. The United States is trying to reshape the system. Many countries in the European Union are trying to stabilize it. They are worried about energy, markets, immediate disruption. One of the big problems going into this ass-kicking scenario, as you may want to call it, Trump did not expect a lot of support from the EU, but he didn't expect the amount of opposition. Normally, they grumble and they rattle their sabers like they did in Greenland and they launched 15 people. This time, they denied us access to bases that we've been putting money into for years, millions and maybe even billions of dollars that we've sunk into Europe. And they sort of stuck it up Trump's ass, right? Causing the aircraft to go hundreds of miles out of their way, which causes us more repair bills, blah, blah, blah. Get you to a position where maybe an aircraft will fall out of the sky, which we don't want. That, and they have been continually backdooring us with the Iranians, especially the French. All right. So you have that whole issue going on there. But because they are worried about the energy, they are a faded photograph of themselves. Some of these countries were stronger pre-World War II than they are today. Even with the Germans knocking them out of the box, they were stronger then militarily than they are today. So they push for de-escalation. We look at it as a betrayal, but it's not a betrayal for them because their woke lifestyle and zero carbon footprint have left them at the mercy of the Russians, have left them at the mercy of the Iranians. They need fuel. Germany closed down perfectly good nuclear power plants. They had years left on them. You can't even, like a girl said, I'm surprised they can run that Bear Game disco place, right? But yet they can do that. So they are pushing for a de-escalation. And this not betrayal, but betrayal has consequences because a strategy that depends on isolating Iran gets weaker if allies keep engaging with Iran, right? And Iran isn't fighting this alone. It has backing, direct or indirect, from countries like China and Russia. There's a blurb out there just yesterday and into today saying the Chinese, even though they voted against uh, punishing Iran, slipped into Pakistan to talk to the Pakistanis, to talk to the Iranians, to tell them to cut the shit out with the Gulf, right? And with the Strait. So when you have countries like China and Russia behind you, that means you have even more pressure. Iran is not isolated, and that is what's giving it its endorsement. Now, the Chinese supposedly just flew two supply aircraft in the other day. Why we didn't do the welcome to America trick, which they would do to us, which is surround the aircraft with fighter planes the entire way in there. You don't have to, you don't have to bump them, but you have to let them know you're there. And they don't do that. That's fine. It sort of goes against the way I think the Donald would have done things, but it is what it is. So Iran knows now it's not isolated. It can get weapons. It has its money under control. The Europeans are not going to let the Americans seize their vast billions of dollars in their private houses and their girlfriends. So that takes us into a separate segment. And this is going to be for you as you're watching why Iran, when we had the other day when the Israelis blew up a bunch of shit and the Iranians got upset. The United States is not speaking for Israel in this. Now, the Iranians and the Pakistanis are saying, yes, they are. And America says, no, they're not. And this is the reason that Iran wants the U.S., not Israel, in that room. For all you Jew haters for BitChute and everything, hold your ears, cover your ears, go in the other room till we get through this part, right? So something most people haven't thought about is Iran is actually glad that the Israelis are not running these negotiations because the United States and Israel approach war very differently. Once again, this is a Middle Eastern perspective. Israel counts in the Middle East. They don't want to say it, but they do. The U.S. applies pressure and then moves towards stability. Israel would apply pressure and they just keep going until the threat is structurally reduced. Iran knows this. So instead of confronting Israel directly at the table, it's trying something smarter. It's trying to shape Israeli behavior through the United States because in their mind and everybody else in the world except for the Americans, the United States is holding the leash on Israel, right? Because they could do much, much worse things to Iran if we weren't there sort of trying to keep them on the guardrail. I know it's hard in America these days with all these fake Republicans who are just basically anti-Semitic junior white power guys because they're afraid to say the N word, but it's true. Now, they want this done without Israel being present in the room. It conditions talks on Israeli actions. You'll find out about that. It's expanded negotiation to include things like Lebanon, right? And what does that have to do with America? We're not fighting in Lebanon, right? The Israelis are kicking the shit out of Hezbollah there. The Lebanese are in need of help, but we will never go back because of the Beirut Marine Corps barracks bombing. It's guaranteed we will never go back since that occurred. But that's a story for another time. So it's conditioning talks on Israeli actions and it's expanding negotiations to include the Israeli fronts. And what does that do? It's turning us into the mediator of an Israeli Iran Hezbollah warfare peace talk at the same time. So there are many peace talks going on in the same room, but they want us to push against an ally of ours and its adversary. And it's not accidental. This is how they do their strategy. Once again, you could have read the book. Where is it? Modern Islamic Warfare by Harold Rode. Read the book. It's very thin. I think you can get it for $10. Okay. So, what could the United States learn from Israel at this point? Not everything. Okay. But one key idea, because we are different governments, we are different mindsets. This is a traditional enemy of 50 years. For Israel, it's been a traditional enemy since day one for them, the Arabs in general. A threat is not resolved when it is damaged. Okay. We beat the shit out of a lot of stuff, but it's not resolved anything. It is resolved when they cannot easily return, which puts the electric plants back on the agenda. Because right now, here's your mismatch. Yeah, mismatch. The US will apply pressure, then it negotiates. The Iranians take the ass kicking, and then they're going to come back for more because that's how they keep their fighters in the field. So what happens? We win in phases, the US, and Iran survives the cycle, and that's the problem. They can continue to lose. They can continue to have people killed out from under them. And in their philosophy, they are still winning because they did not surrender. So by you, as an American, asking for an Iranian surrender, you are only aiding the Iranians. Sounds weird, but it's true. You want to destroy them. You want to destroy everything that they are involved in that allows them to continue to fight. The people, obviously, that we are aware of, the Iranian citizenry, have had 45,000 of their friends murdered by the Iranian government, and probably more. Let's put it at about 60,000. And then we've killed however many IRGC guys. So they're already about 120,000 dead for this month and a half long spree. So if you want to understand what's really happening here, there's a lot going on. We'll give you 5 things for you to watch. If you want to watch it on your own, I would advise not listening to the mainstream media at all at this point. It has sunk to a new low that I would rather watch TASS or Pravda in 1975 than watch any of these, including Fox. Fox is bullshit too. They're all pretty much fucking garbage. And go find think tanks and things like that, which are also semi-garbage, depending who it is, like Rand Institute and all them. But if you want to understand what's really happening, you have to learn to ignore this noise. It's hard to do, all of us. I have had a problem with it lately. I had to take a week off and just because you can't stand it anymore when you're watching lies that are costing thousands of lives, right? So watch 5 things. Are the ships moving freely? How would you find out? Go on Ship Tracker. Go on G Captain. Go on Sal Macagliano or whatever the hell his name is. What's going on in shipping? Okay. They'll tell you strictly the ship stuff. The politics, especially G Captain, got a little left lately. But ships are moving or ships are not moving. Are incomes, I'm sorry, are insurance markets stabilizing? That's number 2. Number 3, is Iran being removed from the system as far as the ships having to be moved? Or are they kept in it? Are its capabilities gone or just delayed? Right? And are outside powers helping it endure, which we know they are? You answer those when you understand the war better than most of the analysts, especially the ones at the Pentagon. So here's the bottom line. The US can win this battlefield. Iran can still win the structure. And in modern conflict, which is what we're in, you are in 5 and 6 generations of warfare out there right now. It's not just about who hits harder. It's about who shapes what's happening next. Because when this shooting slows down, which it has, this is when the real war is going to start. And let's hope that the administration is smart enough. Maybe they have I mean, I see inklings, a lot of other people see inklings of a plan, but we should have seized and controlled. I mean, I'm not talking about invasion. We don't need to invade the Iranians to control the Strait of Hormuz. All right, that doesn't have to be done. So, and if you want to know why, go to SimSec. Yeah, I'll put a thing on here. I have an article in SimSec talking just about that. Put it in the link because why not read it there? And you can put the hate on the bottom. And I'm sure they're used to that shit anyway. So otherwise, that's where we are. And that's as good as it's going to get. The peace negotiations are kind of nonsense until, first of all, ceasefires are going to continue to be broken because that's how Arabs fight a war. I would say someone's going to have to blast something. I would, pick an electrical plant that we don't really like. It's not something in Tehran, somewhere out in the woods, and put it out of commission. People to understand you don't have to blast the whole thing flat. This day and age, we have such good laser sighting systems. The Iranians, I mean, the Israelis have guys on the ground riding all over the place over there right now, as far as I can tell. And the Americans aren't going to pull that shit because we aren't going to have anybody captured, which was the great fear with that second pilot. And that's a story for another time. But that shows you how partisan the American media is, that it carried a fake 10 steps peace plan and also went out of their way to try to zero in where this other pilot was, which would have allowed the Iranians to capture him, which is why you needed 150 planes in the air to get this guy back. So that's about all for now. Have a good weekend, and you can send us whatever, put in the comments section if there's anything you want us to cover. I'd suggest you look at the other videos that we've already talked about, almost everything that you would need to get a clear idea of what's going on. But do not think that those fucking Iranians are done yet, because without that regime, these guys have nothing. They can't go into retirement somewhere, right? It's not like what's going to go on with Cuba. Those guys will flee to, I don't think they'll go with Nicaragua. They'll probably end up in Spain itself. And then it's just a matter of who wants to get around to killing them, you know? And that's what the Iranians are fearful of, because they've murdered so many people over the last 40 years. That would be like a murder on the Orient Express. I got 700 potential murderers, you know? So anyway, that's it. Have a good day. Saturday, April 11th. It's 12:58. Damn, that went on for a while. See you later.